September 2025, Misano Racetrack. Yamaha pulls back the curtain on its V4 powered monster that could change everything. For decades, Yamaha's inline-four was legendary, but they just threw it all away. Why would a manufacturer abandon their winning formula? The answer is more shocking than you think. Yamaha's inline-four engine wasn't just any engine. This was the heartbeat of legends. Valentino Rossi, Jorge Lorenzo, these names are etched into MotoGP history, and they rode that inline-four to glory. Multiple world championships. Unforgettable victories. The inline-four was synonymous with Yamaha's identity. Here's what made it special. All four cylinders lined up in a perfect row. This design created a lower center of gravity, which translated into exceptional mid-corner speed and stability. Riders loved it because the power delivery was predictable and smooth. You could flow through corners with surgical precision, carrying speed where others couldn't. But here's where the story takes a dark turn. By 2022, cracks started showing. While Yamaha's inline-four was still dancing through corners, their rivals like Ducati, Honda, KTM, and Aprilia were destroying them on the straights. The last inline-four victory in MotoGP was by Alex Rins at Valencia in 2022, riding a Suzuki. After that, nothing. Every single Grand Prix win since 2023 went to a V4-powered machine. Every single one. Yamaha had become the last manufacturer clinging to the inline-four, and they were getting left in the dust. In the brutal truth, their legendary engine had reached its maximum potential. It simply couldn't compete anymore. But if Yamaha's inline-four was so legendary, so proven, so deeply embedded in their DNA, why would they risk everything on an entirely new engine configuration that could potentially fail spectacularly, especially when they're already struggling to compete? And what if this gamble backfires and sends them spiraling even further down the championship standings? Well, this is because Yamaha didn't have a choice. This wasn't about wanting to switch, it was about survival. Look at the facts. Entering 2025, Yamaha was the only manufacturer still running an inline-four. They were bringing a knife to a gunfight. The V4 configuration offers something the inline-four simply cannot match: explosive acceleration and higher top speeds. Here's why. The V4's cylinders are arranged in a V shape, typically at 90 degrees. This creates a compact, short crankshaft. And what does that mean? Lightning-fast acceleration out of corners, brutal straight-line speed, and better integration with modern electronics and aerodynamics. Yamaha's technical director Max Bartolini and project leader Kazuhiro Masuda made it clear. This isn't about catching up, it's about overtaking. They built this V4 from scratch, completely new architecture, new chassis, new electronics, new aerodynamics. Everything designed as one unified, coherent system. So why risk it all? Well, because staying with the inline-four meant accepting defeat. The V4 is their shot at redemption, at reclaiming their place at the top. It's all or nothing. Now let's talk about the secret development story, because this V4 didn't just appear overnight. Oh no, Yamaha had been working on this in the shadows for over a year. September 2024, Ricardo Tormo circuit in Valencia. Behind closed doors, Augusto Fernandez, Yamaha's test rider, fired up the V4 prototype for the first time on a racetrack. No media, no rivals, just engineers, data, and the roar of something completely new. Throughout 2024 and early 2025, Yamaha pulled off something extraordinary. They ran two parallel development programs. On one hand, they continued updating the inline-four for their current race bikes. On the other hand, in complete secrecy, they were building this V4 beast. Rumors started swirling in spring 2025 at Barcelona during private tests. Paddock insiders noticed something different. Engine sounds that didn't match the familiar inline-four hum. Yamaha engineers were hiding something. Mechanics were tighter-lipped than usual. The speculation was wild. Then came September 2025, Misano, the Monster Energy Yamaha MotoGP hospitality area. LED lights blazing, cameras everywhere. And there it was, the V4-powered YZRM1 prototype, gleaming in that iconic Yamaha blue livery. Augusto Fernandez would ride it as a wildcard entry, not to win, but to gather real race data under full GP conditions. This was Yamaha's stress test. So after riding this brand new V4 prototype that Yamaha secretly developed for over a year, an engine that represents a complete philosophical shift from everything they've ever done in the four-stroke MotoGP era, did test rider Augusto Fernandez actually feel like this radical new machine was better than the legendary inline-four that won them championships? Or was it just different? And what specific performance advantages did he discover during those crucial first laps at Misano? All right, here's what Fernandez actually said. And it's fascinating. Yes, the V4 already solved some of the inline-four's main issues. Specifically, rear grip and acceleration. Remember, the old M1's biggest weakness was driving out of corners. Riders would pin the throttle, and the bike just didn't have that explosive punch. They'd exit a corner, and Ducatis, Hondas, KTMs would just blast past them on acceleration. The V4 changed that immediately. Fernandez reported that the new engine delivered significantly better traction and grip coming out of corners. That punch, that explosive drive rivals had, Yamaha finally has it, but it's not perfect yet. Fernandez noted that while the rear end worked better, the front end balance still needed tuning. The inline-four's famous chassis agility, that needs to be recreated with the new V4's different weight distribution and power characteristics. The chassis was completely redesigned from scratch to work with the V4. New weight distribution, new center of gravity, new handling dynamics. Getting that perfect balance, maintaining Yamaha's legendary cornering ability while adding V4 aggression, that's the challenge. So is it better? In acceleration and rear grip? Absolutely. In overall package and race-winning performance? Not yet, but the foundation is there, and it's promising. Let's dive deeper into the technical warfare happening here. Because the difference between a V4 and an inline-four isn't just academic, it's the difference between winning and losing in modern MotoGP. Imagine the inline-four engine with 4 cylinders perfectly lined up in a row. This creates a longer, wider engine. The crankshaft, the spinning shaft that converts piston movement into rotational power, is longer. That length means slightly more weight, slightly more rotating mass to accelerate and decelerate. And the advantage? Incredible stability, smooth, predictable power. Riders could trust it mid-corner, knowing exactly how the bike would respond. It was like a precision instrument. The V4 is different. 2 banks of 2 cylinders arranged in a V, usually 90 degrees in MotoGP. The crankshaft is much shorter, more compact. Less rotating mass means faster acceleration, quicker response. The engine sits lower and more centrally in the chassis, improving weight distribution. But here's the really important part: aerodynamics. MotoGP is obsessed with aero now. Downforce, drag reduction, stability at 350 kilometers per hour. The inline-four's width created packaging challenges. Engineers had to work harder to create efficient aerodynamic solutions around that wider engine. The V4's narrower profile? It's a game changer for aero designers. More freedom to sculpt bodywork, create downforce, reduce drag. In a sport where milliseconds matter, where straight-line speed can mean the difference between podium and mid-pack, this matters enormously. But here's where this story takes an unexpected twist. Something almost no one is talking about. Ready? Yamaha's V4 isn't just about 2026, it's about 2027 and beyond. Why does that matter? Because MotoGP is changing the rules. In 2027, MotoGP switches from 1000cc engines to 850cc engines. Completely new technical regulations, new power targets, new fuel limits, new everything. Every manufacturer will need to redesign their engines. Except Yamaha is already ahead. Their V4 prototype was designed from the ground up with both the current regulations and the 2027 changes in mind. While other manufacturers will scramble to adapt their existing V4s to the new rules, Yamaha's architecture is already compatible. Everyone thinks Yamaha's playing catch-up, but they might actually be playing the long game, positioning themselves for the next regulatory era while everyone else focuses on today. Max Bartolini, Yamaha's technical director, has been suspiciously quiet about the V4's future-proofing aspects, but the timeline tells the story. Full factory debut in 2026, just 1 year before the biggest rule change in modern MotoGP history. Coincidence? I don't think so, with Yamaha being the last manufacturer to finally abandon their signature inline-four configuration after watching every single competitor commit to V4 engines years earlier. And considering that they've essentially admitted their championship-winning philosophy was no longer competitive, does this switch represent a courageous evolution toward future success? Or is it actually a desperate admission of defeat that proves they wasted years stubbornly clinging to an outdated design while their rivals dominated? And could this delay in development have cost them so much ground that even with a V4, they'll never catch up? Okay, let's look at both sides. The pessimistic view. Yamaha waited too long. Ducati perfected their V4 over more than a decade. Honda, KTM, Aprilia, they've all had years to refine electronics, chassis balance, power delivery. Yamaha's V4 is literally starting from zero, while their rivals are on version 10.0. And the optimistic view? Yamaha learned from everyone else's mistakes. They watched Ducati struggle with early V4 reliability issues. They saw Honda's V4 challenges with front-end grip. They observed KTM's growing pains. Yamaha had the luxury of studying everyone's development paths, understanding what worked and what didn't. And here's something crucial. Yamaha's legendary chassis expertise. While other manufacturers focused on V4 engine development, Yamaha spent those years becoming the masters of chassis design and corner speed dynamics. Now they're applying that expertise to a V4 package. Think about it. What if Yamaha creates a V4 that combines Ducati-level acceleration with Yamaha's traditional cornering excellence? That would be devastating for the competition. So is it courage or desperation? Honestly, it's both. They had no choice but to change. But the way they're executing secret development, comprehensive redesign, future-proofing for 2027, that takes vision and courage. Whether it works, we'll know by mid-2026. Let's talk about the riders at the heart of this revolution, because none of this matters without the humans twisting the throttle. Augusto Fernandez is the unsung hero here. As Yamaha's test rider, he logged hundreds of laps on the V4 prototype before anyone else. His technical feedback, his ability to articulate what the bike needed, his willingness to push an unproven machine to the limit. That's what turned concepts into reality. But the real validation comes from the factory stars. Fabio Quartararo and Alex Rins. These are championship-caliber riders. Riders who've won races, riders who know what a MotoGP bike should feel like. After Fernandez's wildcard outing at Misano, both Quartararo and Rins got their hands on the V4 during post-race testing. Their feedback would be crucial, not just about performance, but about whether the new bike retained that Yamaha feeling riders loved. And there's another player, Andrea Dovizioso. Dovi isn't racing anymore, but he serves as Yamaha's performance advisor. Here's why that's brilliant. Dovizioso spent years riding Ducati's V4, fighting for championships. He knows V4s inside and out. His experience bridges the gap between Yamaha's inline-four past and their V4 future. But given that Yamaha is now asking their riders, especially superstar Fabio Quartararo, who built his entire riding style around the inline-four's characteristics and became world champion specifically because of how perfectly his smooth, corner speed approach matched that engine's personality, to completely reinvent their techniques, learn new braking points, new acceleration zones, new chassis behaviors, and essentially throw away years of muscle memory and instinct built on the old bike? What happens if their riders simply can't adapt to the V4's different character? And could Yamaha's technical revolution actually destroy the very rider talent that made them competitive in the first place? Well, here's the truth. It's a real risk. Fabio Quartararo won the 2021 World Championship because he was perfect for the inline-four M1. His riding style, smooth inputs, carrying corner speed, flowing through turns, matched that engine's character. He maximized what the bike did well and minimized what it did poorly. But the V4 is fundamentally different. More aggressive power delivery. More rear grip means you can brake later and harder. More acceleration means different corner exit techniques. Everything Quartararo's muscle memory knows, it needs reprogramming. However, Quartararo is also frustrated with the current bike's limitations. He's tired of being passed on straights. He's sick of not having the tools to fight with Ducati. If the V4 gives him those tools, he'll adapt. Champions always do. And here's the encouraging part. Early testing feedback suggests the V4 retains Yamaha's corner speed DNA. It's not a completely alien machine. The chassis philosophy is still there. It's enhanced, not replaced. Rins, who rode the inline-four Suzuki before joining Yamaha, actually might have an advantage. He's experienced different engine characters, different bike philosophies. His adaptability could be crucial during this transition. Will the riders adapt? Based on initial testing and rider comments, yes. Will it be easy? Absolutely not. But if Yamaha gets this right, if they create a V4 that keeps their cornering magic while adding straight-line muscle, their riders will dominate. Now let's talk about what this means for MotoGP as a sport. Because Yamaha's switch to V4 closes a chapter in Grand Prix racing history, the inline-four represented a philosophy, different from everyone else, unique. It said, we don't need to follow trends, we win our way. That philosophy won championships. It created legendary rivalries. Rossi versus Biaggi, Lorenzo versus Stoner, Quartararo versus Marquez, all powered by that distinctive inline-four sound and character. Now MotoGP will be a V4-only championship. More homogeneous, more similar. Some fans see this as progress. Everyone on equal technical footing. May the best team and rider win. Others see it as a loss, less diversity, less individuality, less of what made racing interesting. But here's a different perspective. Maybe this isn't about conformity. Maybe it's about evolution. The V4 configuration simply works better with modern tire technology, modern electronics, and modern aerodynamics. It's not that inline-fours are bad, they're just optimized for a different era of racing. And if Yamaha's V4 truly delivers on its promise, if they create something that challenges Ducati's dominance, that makes MotoGP more exciting, not less. Competition drives innovation. Innovation creates closer racing. That's what fans want. So where does this leave us as we look toward 2026 and beyond? Let's break down what needs to happen. First, reliability testing. The V4 prototype needs to survive full race distances, back-to-back GP weekends, extreme temperatures, wet conditions. Any mechanical failures now could delay the full factory debut. Second, electronics refinement. Modern MotoGP bikes have incredibly sophisticated traction control, wheelie control, engine braking systems. These need to be completely retuned for the V4's different power characteristics. This takes time and thousands of test laps. Third, chassis optimization. Remember, the chassis was designed as part of the unified V4 system, but real-world racing always reveals surprises. Different tracks, different conditions, different tire compounds. The chassis needs to work everywhere, not just at Misano. Fourth, aerodynamic development. The narrower V4 opens up new aero possibilities. Yamaha's engineers will spend the off-season in wind tunnels and CFD simulations, searching for every advantage. And finally, rider confidence. Quartararo and Rins need to trust this bike. Trust it at 350 kilometers per hour. Trust it under heavy braking. Trust it in mixed conditions. That trust comes from laps, from data, from results. Let's put this in perspective with some cold, hard facts. Since 2023, 0 inline-four victories. Every podium, every win, every championship point is dominated by V4 machines. Yamaha's inline-four M1, despite brilliant chassis work and dedicated riders, slipped down the performance charts. Not because it was bad, but because the competition evolved past it. Ducati's Desmosedici 5.4 became the gold standard. 8 Constructors' Championships since the V4 switch. Dominant straight-line speed, incredible acceleration. That's what Yamaha is chasing. But here's what gives Yamaha hope. Their testing regime. Aggressive, phased, comprehensive, dyno testing, track testing, real race stress testing. They're not rushing this. Every component is being proven before full deployment. And you know what's really striking about this whole story? The courage it took to make this decision. Think about it. Yamaha could have kept developing the inline-four, incremental improvements, safe choices. They'd probably keep finishing mid-pack, maybe grab an occasional podium, slowly fade into irrelevance. But instead, they bet the farm. Completely new engine, completely new philosophy, millions of euros in development, years of engineering work, risking their reputation, their identity, their legacy. Will Yamaha's gamble pay off? We don't know yet. But what we do know is this: Yamaha is back in the fight. They're not conceding. They're not accepting defeat. They're swinging for the fences. So here's my question for you. Do you think Yamaha made the right call switching to a V4? Or should they have stuck with their legendary inline-four? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. And if you found this deep dive fascinating, hit that subscribe button. We've got more coming your way.